morning, everyone. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Mankato, and welcome to our 4th anniversary celebration. I'm sporting my 1 Million Cups shirt this morning. Got the 1 Million Cups mug, just branded like crazy for our anniversary. Excited to hear from some presenters that we've had come visit us in the past. And we're going to play a few games to look at what has happened in the last 4 years for 1 Million Cups in Mankato. I want to start by reminding everyone what 1 Million Cups is. Why is it called 1 Million Cups? It comes from the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City, which is a foundation that funds research and support for entrepreneurs across the country. And 1 Million Cups is this idea that at the same time, every Wednesday morning, there are people with a cup of coffee at meetings like this, talking about entrepreneurship, helping other entrepreneurs, listening to their stories, giving them advice. So it's caffeinating the nation, caffeinating our entrepreneurial spirit. That's the idea of 1 Million Cups. It's always free. Everyone's welcome. The idea is that this is just a place for entrepreneurs to come and tell their stories and get help from the community. Over the past 4 years, we've had quite a few wonderful presenters. And today, for our 4th anniversary, I invited a couple of them back to come and tell us what's been happening with their business and what sort of updates would they have for us. So I'm going to jump right into that in just a minute, so be ready. And Dave, I'll have you go first, so just be prepared. But before we do that, I want to give you a link. In our Facebook page, there's a link to Jamboard. And Jamboard is just a simple place where you can post information about yourself, and you can post information about, I'm going to grab that link, post information about what you think we should be doing with 1 Million Cups. I'm going to put that in chat for you. And those of you who might be on Facebook Live, you'll see that link in the discussion area on Facebook Live. It's open for anybody to add sticky notes to, and there's 2 pages. The first page is add your sticky notes and just put them on the right circle. And you can click on, to add a sticky note. Here we go. You can click on request edit access if you don't see it, and then you will get the approval to do that. And then you can add sticky notes onto that. And on the second page, there's a little map of Minnesota, and you can put a little picture of yourself or just a little sticky that says which part of the state you're from. Just sort of fun little exercise. And you can do that as we're doing other things. Okay, so let's get started with one of my favorite presenters from the past was Guardian Athletics. They came in with this big football thing, like it looked like it was part of the uniform. I don't know anything about football, so I didn't know what it was. And they brought in this great big thing, and then they started talking, and they showed a video, and I was absolutely blown away by what a cool product this was and how amazing that this was coming out of Mankato. So I know you'll all be excited to hear about Guardian Athletics if you haven't heard about them before. And if you have, we're going to get an update on what's been happening. So go ahead, Dave.
Hey, thanks, Bon. Dave Norris here with Guardian Athletics. My business partner, Jeff Chambers, was unable to join me today, but that's all right. If you don't know Guardian Athletics is, Jeff developed a product called Cato Collar. In its simplest form, it's a piece of sports equipment designed to slow the head down after impact. Any impact, not just a blow to the head. He identified a major gap in safety technology in football. If you picture the helmet as a car, all the cool technology that protects you from an impact, that's great. But if there's no airbag or seatbelt, the passenger in the car, in this analogy, the brain, is tossed about the cabin, and the results aren't very good. So what we simply do is after you get hit and your head moves beyond your control, we gradually hit these pads, grab the helmet, and gradually decelerate it, slowing down the head, slowing down the brain. So that's the super high level overview of what was developed. And we went to a proof of concept about 4 years ago, seeded a bunch of football teams with it and kind of got the feedback. And since then, I'm just going to do a quick punch list. We've got our 3rd patent. We took 2nd place in the Minnesota Cup a few years ago. We have international orders from 6 countries. We just got an order the other day from Sweden, Finland, and Norway. So we're up there. And the funny thing is the director of that company in Sweden is from California, and his best friend used to be a quarterback for the MSU Mavericks. That was kind of funny back in the early 90s. I didn't think that'd be a conversation with a guy from Sweden. We have about 100 colleges that purchased collars any Saturday you watch football, you'll see us all over the screen. That's really fun to do. We have a few NFL players wearing it. The Colts now have added 2 or 3 players, and we've updated our board, and we're working on creating a medical board right now. So that's kind of some of the hits that we've been traveling, the things we've been going through. I think the big message, though, for us is the insane level of pivoting you have to do once you launch, right? It's almost like the easy part was the sweat and intensity and shaking hands and moving around, right? Once you have a single sale, every part of your conversation moves off the Word document to the spreadsheet. So we met with lots and lots of investors. They said, well, we see here you had $300 worth of sales last year. I'm like, yeah, we accidentally took a check from a guy. That one little decision changed the whole trajectory of dealing with people afterwards. And like everyone else, mix in a little COVID and you have some work to do. That's for sure. I will say that the biggest surprises for us, a lot of it falls under what we thought our assumptions and how awfully wrong many of them were, or they weren't necessarily wrong, but they weren't applicable. You couldn't apply it to how you move it. So for example, our market is athletic trainers, coaches, those people on the football side. Our market is also parents and players and boosters, and they have completely different needs and thoughts and things they're looking for. So our first instinct was, if you can get the moms on board, right? Everyone we talked to had that bit of sage advice. We did a huge focus study group with alpha moms. Their kids are big stars in high school football, and they're in the booster club. That was kind of the requirements. And to a person, their number one concern was their child safety. And to a person, not one of them had any idea what to do or if it was even their job. So we'd say, what do you think you should do about concussions? The blank stares. What do you mean? The coach will tell us if there's something. That was kind of our first light bulb moment where we need to dig a lot deeper than to just, we think this is what we need to do. So our second big pivot was realizing how much money and energy we had to put into professional services, whether it's marketing, accounting, legal. The patent itself is just perpetual ghastly expensive. So our second pivot was moving a lot of our budget to things that technically don't, the wrong word, they don't do anything, but they don't do anything, right? You're just moving things behind the scenes to be presented in a better spot. And that was a real big change for us. It ended up being putting us in some roads where we learned a lot about investment as much as we learned about concussion protocols and things of that nature. One thing we learned, and this is, I give this to any entrepreneur now as kind of a red flag. We approached by, I'm not exaggerating, probably 100 people over the last year. Hey, we want to invest in your company. We want to give you some money. And almost to a person, they just want to sell us their list of names. They just want to get us connected with somebody and get a cut of it. They all know that they're not properly credentialed, so they want to do a handshake deal. You give us 10 grand, I'll hook you up. This guy's great. Next thing you know, you're thinking you're meeting with an investor, and I'm on the phone with Michael Vick, wanting to be our spokesman. Like, what is going on here? So, no offense to Michael Vick, I just don't know if we were ready for him to be our guy. So that was a really big eye opener for us. Is you need to continually fund, but that's a whole separate skill set outside of what we had. And that really led us down the road of, right now we're at the next spot where we're really looking hard for not an investor, but for an investor that's operational, that's part of our team, that's maybe even running the show, right? I would like to step back into an operations role. Jeff needs to step back into working with trainers and testing. And we're working with a guy right now who was the chief marketing officer for the Vikings for 20 years, and he has a firm now. We're trying to see if we can get him to pull together, and they'll run the show. I don't have a lot of connections all over the NFL, and he does. So it's a matter of humbling yourself and stepping aside as part of the mix too. And that's the spot we're at right now. Because we went from a couple guys doing this to, we need a guy, right? For lack of a better term, we need somebody that has been where we want to go. And we've pushed this as far as we can go on our own. And that's the next step for us, I believe. I hope that's what you're looking for, Yvonne.
That's awesome. Hey, could you talk a little bit about, I think it was early 2018 when you guys came and presented to 1 Million Cups. Could you talk about that experience a little bit and what you got out of that might be beneficial for others who are thinking about, presenting to 1 Million Cups with their ideas?
Oh, by far the biggest takeaway for us was that was kind of the first time we ever really were outside of a one-on-one experience with our talking, right? So we did a lot of pitching in boardrooms and a lot of sit around a coffee table and talk where we had to formalize. And it made us realize that we have a glossy box that our product goes in and we have great marketing material, but we don't have the elevator pitch down. We didn't have the presentation style down. And it was such a learning experience in a very, very safe environment to, even if we didn't touch anybody that day and didn't get a connection that day, we absolutely learned that we need to change the way we explain what we do and take it from an athletic trainer perspective to someone sitting at a table who has a kid playing football's level. And that was the best part of it, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually common feedback that we get from presenters is that, just getting up and practicing, talking about your business to somebody who doesn't know anything about it is just great practice. I have one more question, and then anyone else who would like to ask questions, go right ahead. But I'll see with one more. With all the supply chain problems that we've been hearing about, have you been experiencing that with any pieces or parts of what you're doing with making your product?
We haven't, but the dilemma is for us, the good news is we got to this point where we made our changes to our product and made a huge inventory lot. We had, thousands of them built right before football shut down. So it created a different problem. We have paid for inventory, which is great. I got an email this morning from a different company in Japan, wants me to ship some right away in hopes they can get them. I'm like, hey, good news is we have them. So we luckily missed that, but our product is machined, right? So we have these huge presses that make them. And when we got it done during good supply chain days, it took us almost a year to get ready to tool up. So if we have to make a new product or a new size or new shape, I fear that for sure.
It's a big project, right?
Yeah.
Mike has his hand up. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Siobhan. Hi, David. As somebody who once played the game, I know I got hit in the head too many times because I played in the 80s and we just kind of shook those things off and we went back in. How do you see your product changing the game? And how do you see the future of the game evolving? Because when I watch football today compared to what I watched football back in the 80s, to me, it just seems like a different sport. I mean, it's not as, I call a better term, violent, but it's, seeing some of the players. I mean, I remember William, the refrigerator Perry about 10 years ago. Poor guy was in a wheelchair, but just crippled. And I know that's what we don't want to see, but how do you see the future of football changing?
That's a hotly debated question. That's a very common topic. One of the guys on our board of directors, his name is Les Pico. He's executive director of player development for the Vikings. He's been there for 20 some years. And he has the same conversations. We have to keep the players safe, but the game, there's no way to make the game safe, right? You have to find that balance between acceptable risk and unacceptable risk. And he says the thing that's being seen that they're talking about at the Vikings training camp is where do we draw that line ourselves, right? We found one of the big values for our product working and getting in the market wasn't the efficacy that it helped slow the head down. It was the fact that a player could keep their head up. So traditional collars, the main gate was if I can't move and play, I'm going to get cut from the team. That was still the number one concern. I had a parent call me the other day and had a child that had a really bad neck injury. They wanted the collar overnighted to them. We'll pay whatever it takes. We got to get him on the field. I said, how'd it go on Friday night at the game? And she said, he didn't wear it. He didn't like the way it looked. I'm like, so, you're so worried about your kid not being able to play again. You're worried he's going to have a catastrophic injury. You're letting him make the decision of how it looks. So you're 100% right. There's that piece. And we believe the next step isn't marketing to players and coaches. We met with Ben Utek. He's a former golfer, big time concussion issues, written a book about it. Got a great voice too, sings at Chanhassen. But getting some legislation, right? There's been a number of things tried to pass to ban tackle football at youth levels. So there's appetite for that where it's like, hey, instead of banning something, what if we mandate the next layer of safety? Kind of like when they put airbags and seatbelts in cars. So our goal is to use that path or the insurance path, to be frank. If we can show statistically that you have 60% less catastrophic injuries on a team by wearing our product, and I mean just random number, right? I'm not making claims there. How much will you get cut off your premium? So, like when you first, back that same analogy, how your insurance dropped if you had a car with airbags. So we've decided we're going to maybe try to go to the head of the snake here and drive the decision making down like they have with much gear. So again, we might pivot from that after we learn a little more, but I don't know if I answered your question. I think the answer is I don't know. I have no idea.
Awesome. Other questions or comments from anyone?
And by the way, real quick, we did have one investor sign their paperwork at the Circle Inn. Just FYI, little segue.
Really? Oh, awesome. We're going to be hearing from Jenny in just a little bit. All sorts of movers and shakers at the Circle Inn.
just one more, David, and I might
Yes.
have gotten distracted. Maybe you talked about this, but you're dealing with some heavy hitters, as we would call the National Football League and the NCAA. What was your process as far as getting to that top? What kind of pitch did you have to deliver to them, and was it tough?
Yes and no. It was tough because you have a lot of egos involved in the world at all levels, right? That was our biggest issue, was just preconceived notions that are so deeply entrenched that are frankly incorrect in some cases, right? That you just have to gently work around. But the big benefit we had was Jeff was an athletic trainer. He's got almost 40 years of experience. And since they teach that at MSU, our first 70 people were students that were there when he was working there. So we had a unique in with decision makers or decision influencers on a personal level, which really helped us get that foot in the door. Very rarely was that person that was the head athletic trainer at Clemson the ultimate decision maker, but by the fact that they would be willing to talk to us and aha moment hit them, then we had a champion inside, and then it started to kind of go from there. And that's been really our best in just literally networking through that.
Nice. I was going to ask you about that. The origins at MSU. Was it you that was working at MSU? Or was it Jeff at the time you started? Yeah.
Jeff was, yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks. If anybody has any other questions, I'll give you just a moment to raise your hand or chime in. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Dave. It's so great to hear what's happened and how well you're doing. Congratulations,
no problem.
Dave.
Thank you.
And the whole thing of, pivoting and having to readjust, man, that's the life of every entrepreneur, right?
Right.
I love the thing that you said about, finding someone who has a skill set that you don't have and being humble enough to step aside to let that person, take that role. That's something that's really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included. Okay, next up, we have Brad Kramer from Provenia Consulting. Brad, you take it away.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Basically, I started out Provenia Consulting a few years ago and presented at 1 Million Cups pretty much right away when I started. At the time when I started the business and up until fairly recently, my focus was on safety and environmental consulting. So doing a lot of safety training for businesses, a lot of working with dangerous chemicals, confined space, lockout, tagout, first aid, CPR, all that kind of stuff was the core of my business. But over about the last 6 months or so, really looking at the business and looking at it, how can I bring the most value to clients? How can I run the type of consulting company that I want to run, where I'm doing what I really enjoy? And constantly chasing around after those, the smaller training events for clients and stuff like that was getting exhausting. And also, I didn't feel like I was bringing the greatest value that I potentially could to clients. My safety training definitely has a high level of value. I enjoy doing it. But it wasn't quite that thing that was really that I was really passionate about. As I started looking at what my business could do, what my strengths were, my network, who I had in my network as far as other consultants, because I do a lot of things like with BNI, meeting with other BNI chapters, other consultants and stuff like that. So I had a pretty good network and figured out a business plan where I could really help businesses in a much more meaningful way than just doing safety training. So built up, and I just started this out in the business plan, just have my first big client that I'm working with now. But what I do is I go into a manufacturing company and look at, okay, what do you have for systems in place? This will be for a smaller manufacturing company, typically where the owner has built that company up over a period of 5 to 10 years and is getting to that point now where, okay, I've built this business. I don't have time for my family, the time that I want to enjoy life. I'm not getting the income from the business, or I want to retire, and the business doesn't have the value to get a good seller, to get a good sale and stuff like that. So go into the business, look at what systems do you have in place, like HR systems, safety. Do you have a quality management system, or the lean and efficiency, continuous improvement, looking at all those things and figuring out what the needs of that business are. Then going back to the business owner with the proposal with a team of consultants. So if, for example, if they needed human resource systems, building up the culture of the business, putting the HR policies and procedures into place, building a good recruiting strategy for finding new employees. That HR consultant will then put together a proposal for the HR part. I have a lean manufacturing or continuous improvement consultant that he looks at all the operations of the business to make sure it's where do we have room for improvement in efficiency? Where can we automate? Because right now the problem finding employees isn't going to go away anytime soon. So the more a business can automate, the more they can improve their throughput and meet their clients' needs. So being able to look at the problems as being interconnected. So HR is approaching it from the recruiting perspective. Operations is approaching it from the efficiency on the plant floor perspective. So automating and reducing the labor hours for a lot of the jobs and stuff like that. Having a leadership coach come in at the same time, managing the change management. So the employees understand what's going on. They're not just kind of left out in the dark. Managers and supervisors are getting coached up to the level of being a supervisor that they need to be at to manage that company. And basically bringing together the right team of consultants that come in and put all those systems into place in a much shorter period of time than if the business were to, say, hire a HR manager that was responsible for building those systems, hiring a QA manager who would be responsible for building those systems. It goes much quicker. So anyway, so that's kind of the process I developed out. So right now, the struggles I'm looking for, I'm still working on defining what that process looks like. I've never seen another consulting company that does that. So having basically even naming what that is and defining it has been a challenge. So I think that's my biggest challenge, as well as getting the word out there. I've been working with another business coach who's called a fractional COO, who kind of helps with the strategy and stuff like that. So making sure that as I put the process together, I'm not having any blind spots. And the process is something that is going to be much more attractive to businesses than simply safety consultants. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And 1 Million Cups has played a huge role in getting my business to where it was. It opened up a lot of introductions, really opened up the Mankato community, which I've really appreciated since starting my business, getting to know everybody here. Just even the moral support, the friends I have in this room, the other SBDC consultants that I've gotten to know as well. So 1 Million Cups has really played a big role in getting me there. Not necessarily for sales, but really building the network so that I have that the tribe of people around me that I always know who to call and talk to and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Been exciting.
Great. Well, and in case folks don't know, Brad is one of our new organizers for 1 Million Cups. He was coming for a while, and eventually we reached out to him and asked if he might consider being an organizer, and he stepped up to do that. Organizers are volunteers who help to run 1 Million Cups, do things like emceeing and showing up for the events. And helping out with coaching people to help them to present. So if you're a person out there who is really interested in helping entrepreneurs, this is a great place to come and just, like you said, meet other people in your tribe and then maybe join in and be an organizer. So do we have any questions for Brad about his business? You can raise your hand or you can jump right in. I'm going to ask you the same question because I'm boring. What was the impact of coming to 1 million cups the first time? And then Gary will be right after me.
I think it was really invigorating. For me, it was, I guess, being in Albert Lea, I kind of have, Albert Lea is supposed to be under Rochester for the SBDC, but the first time I came to Mankato for the SBDC, which is where I got introduced to 1 million cups by Gary, it was very welcoming. I was very impressed. So when I started coming to 1 million cups, that really opened up a lot of doors to meet people, really making connections with a lot of people in the room. And those connections when you're an entrepreneur are so important because without basically having that tribe around you, you get tired. You don't know who to turn to for, when you struggle with things that say normal employees don't struggle with. So meeting the people in this room has been the biggest advantage or takeaway that I've had from 1 million cups, and I've appreciated it very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Gary had a question. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, hey, thanks. Yeah, good to see you, Brad. And I applaud you looking at pivoting. Having myself been in the chasing selling training, it is a tough and it's an easy thing for people that usually the motivators. Then there's a heck of a problem that we better get some training. Okay, so getting quicker to the root cause, I think, makes some sense. In terms of paralleling and going that area, it seems to a little bit maybe parallel EOS. I think where they look more of a systems approach, a little broader, but you're maybe more quickly drilling down into an aspect, whether it's HR, operations, or whatever. So I'm guessing you're probably familiar with EOS, but I would maybe look, if you haven't already, take some tips from that. And look and see if there might be some things to glean from that. And I think, continue to build those relationships where you have credibility and get to the root cause in that. So it seems like, I think, a good strategy. And at the same time, I'm assuming you still would do training. It's just that you're not just not chasing that. You're taking a little broader, deeper look than just say, hey, I'll sell you a package of training of this, that, and the other. So wish you well on that. And I think that's where continue to get out and build your credibility and relationships and not just immediately direct sell will serve you well. And plus you got a great audience there behind you that supporting you. So that's always key to have that supporting network. It's quite a background photo there, Brad. So good luck to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mike, you have a question.
It's more of a comment and then a question for Brad, but I've got to know Brad because I grew up south of Albert Lea. So every time we head south of Albert Lea, we have a tendency to kind of get together with Brad. But Brad, I know that since your involvement with Mankato, there's been a lot more going on in Albert Lea regarding entrepreneurship development. Maybe can you explain your involvement, because I know that you've been kind of behind that, and also maybe state what is the root of that? What do you see being the thing that's really kind of supercharged Albert Lea the past few years to be more entrepreneurship oriented? Because I was down there for the Bridge conference, which Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation put on this past fall, and I was very impressed with Albert Lea. So if you could just make some comments about that, I would appreciate it.
I think as far as Albert Lea in particular, I've seen some challenges with Albert Lea, like collaborating with other communities, especially like Mankato or Rochester. I mean, as a community, we kind of have that opportunity to go under either community's business umbrella. And I think Mankato is just such a much better, more inclusive, more like Albert Lea. So been trying to make those connections, but I see a lot of people that they're just trying to start their business and looking for resources. And I'm in the BNI chapter here. Actually, last year was the vice president of our chapter, so drove a lot of changes as far as accountability in BNI. But BNI has kind of really been our way of where our entrepreneurs have been gathering. So that's kind of turned into my tribe here, so to speak, in town. In the Albert Lea community. but I guess because I'm so in BNI and that's my group, I don't get outside of that too much as far as what else the city has going on through our EDA and stuff like that. But that's where I see our business entrepreneurial community kind of focused. But it's been fun to see that rise up here quite a bit. We have a lot going on over the last year or so.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks so much, Brad. We're so grateful to have you as an organizer for 1 Million Cups. And it was a really good presentation. Thank you. Next up, we have Jenny from the Circle Inn and the Beast, which she'll tell you about in just a moment. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hello. So yeah, I didn't really write anything up. So yeah, I own the Circle Inn. It's a bar that's been around for a very long time, but I bought it in 2019. I presented on here during the pandemic and just kind of talked about what we had gone through. But so yeah, bought it in 2019, 2020. Obviously, we all know how that went. And then just been kind of figuring out our business from there. So pre-COVID, you know, we're absolutely like a small town dive bar, if you will. Just very blue collar, kind of that hometown get together place. And so during shutdown, we had to figure out some ways to stay afloat, more or less. So we heavily relied on our off sale, which luckily we were grandfathered into. So that was like a saving grace. And then we got approached by Cisco, which is a company that is a distributor to restaurants and whatnot. So it's one of the food reps. And they had reached out and they had all this food when restaurants were shut down or only doing takeout, you know, drastically diminished on their sales. And they were just saying, hey, we're seeing basically if any of these businesses want to kind of become a glorified Schwansman, if you will. And at first the customers didn't really fully get it. And then we made it our own way of how to market it and how to explain it to them. And it really kept us going, truly. I mean, the off sale did still, but that really paid the bills, if you will, for an entire year until we let people fully back into the circle a year later. So as far as the circle goes, we've kind of learned new ways of doing things. We've expanded our outdoor seating, which is now going to forever be a change. It's actually kind of crazy looking back all the big events that we would have in the small amount of outdoor space that we had. And I kind of sometimes I'm like, how the hell did we pull that off? But anyways, now we have more space. So that's awesome. And yeah, you know, having to get more all the things. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's an investment too, you know, so, but saw really a big value in that. And I think people's habits have changed, you know, older guys that maybe weren't sitting outside have been sitting outside. So we changed things that way. And we always kind of relied heavily on live music, and that really became something that we saw value in. Whereas before, you know, live music is expensive. And sometimes, I mean, even my accountant, I remember when we were doing taxes in 2020, and she's like, do you know how much money you spend on live entertainment? And I'm like, I know, and what truly now is you have to have something to bring people in, because quite frankly, they can drink a hell of a lot cheaper at home. They can eat cheaper at home. You know, they've all realized this. So you have to have something to draw them in. So we don't have a kitchen. So that's the other part of that whole thing. So we're really driving that home. And it's just been super fun too, because all these artists are just so excited to be able to perform again. And I'm just constantly getting like, I'll do a Tuesday night, I'll do, you know, whatever. So that's been fun. Then from the shutdown, we, this year, really, so in March, I can't even remember anymore, but I ended up buying a food truck. And that, the intention of it was, so you have these like, kind of how David was saying too, and Brad was, you have this idea of kind of what you think something is going to be. And then once you start it, it's just kind of like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to let it roll how it goes. So it was originally just going to be like an offshoot of the circle, to have food for our customers. That was my main plan. And I guess good that it became something more, because this has grown into something more than I ever would have planned for it to be. But now we're sometimes at the circle. I mean, really, actually, not that often. And we're doing company lunches and big events and all this stuff in August, September, and October. We averaged 4 to 5 events a week. And I'm doing those. I'm running that thing. So, yeah, and it got to the point, I loved how David said, humbling yourself and stepping aside, because I think that is such a hard thing. And I think if anything came from COVID and the shutdown, it was learning that there are some things that are out of your control and you need to ask for help sometimes. And I think that's very hard for business owners sometimes. So I finally now have a manager. I finally now have somebody doing all the opening cleaning stuff. So if that wasn't the case, there's no way that we could have, pulled off the food truck, and it couldn't have been as successful as it was. And then with the Cisco stuff that I talked about before, because I, have all this time on my hands, but anyways, it started taking over the bar. Like, it started being like, we need to go back to being just a bar, and we need to get all this other stuff out of here. And so I was trying to find a place. So with the Cisco stuff, we had people just would come to the back room of the bar. They'd kind of shop. We literally had it set up as a general store, or people were able to do pre-orders. And then we'd put their stuff in beer boxes or whatever it was, and they'd be on their merry way. And so we needed a place where they could walk right up. There was already parking. And so I don't know if you've ever tried to find office space, in this town, but there's a ton that has you go upstairs, or there's not parking or whatever. And I was like, or it's very expensive. And I randomly stumbled upon this place that's right down the street from the circle, still on Belgrade, still in the area. I feel like it just needed to be close-ish. And for me, I live in the area too, so that's helpful. But so yeah, we were able to build it out. We're just going bare bones, having freezers in there, but also a thing that we did when we had our back room is we had vendors that were, selling, or we would buy wholesale from them, and then we would sell their products or whatever. Well, so I reached out to my list of all, the ones that I normally work with, and then kind of expanded on that. So it's actually closer to 30 local vendors that we're working with, local to Mankato or in the state of Minnesota. So that's really awesome. We're kind of calling it a food boutique now. We're going to be carrying, Lucky's sauces along with the Cisco stuff. I've got the chef Renee that's doing take and bake meals. And again, with humbling yourself. So I had this great, we can't get rid of this. We need to keep it going, but I can't do it. There's no way that I can do all these things. And so I had 2 people that I love and trust approach me and say that they wanted career changes of their own. They were just getting burnt out in their careers, and they wanted something new and fun. And so I have somebody that's doing all the stuff that I hate, the inventory, the inputting of orders, all the stuff. And then I have another lady that's full-time and going to be doing, putting all the deliveries and all that fun stuff away. And I'm like, sure, I'll do the marketing. I'll contact the people. If we can all make this work, that'd be great. So it's learning when you have to give responsibilities. And one of the ladies said that somebody was like, well, what's Jenny going to do now? If she has these people running things. And she was like, yeah, she's just going to sit home and eat bonbons. She's like, no, she's still very actively involved in all these things. But there's this conception that once you start giving responsibilities to other people, that you're just sitting back and doing that. It's well, no, it's growing all the things. So, yeah. So it's going to be called the Beast because that's what it became. I just feel like there's no better term for everything that came out of this. So we're calling it the Beast Foods. It's going to be opening on Belgrade. We are literally waiting on paint to dry right now. And that's another thing that you're just having to roll with it. So just between this group, the plan was to be open next Wednesday. I don't foresee that happening in any way, shape, or form. So I'm just making advent calendars at the bar right now and focusing on that and literally waiting for paint to dry on the floor, stain. And if we don't make it that, then fine, then we'll go on, just kind of, I've gotten to the point again with the shutdown and the pandemic of just time. It'll be okay. 1 week isn't going to make or break your life. Whereas before, I probably would have been freaking out and trying to pull off all these things. But yeah, so a lot of good things have come from the pandemic in learning. I love that, humbling yourself and really seeing certain needs that I don't think, never in a million years, I would have just still been running the circle. None of this stuff would have ever have come about. So, my husband thinks I'm crazy. It's like, well, now we have a backup plan to the backup plan to the backup plan. So we should be okay if anything happens. So that's what I've had going on since we last spoke.
Jenny, I think your presentation to 1 Million Cups was one of my favorites because you got together with cabin number 4 and a couple of other people. Could you talk about that and what came out of that? That was so neat. So
cabin number 4. So ironically, I didn't know her, but my brother coaches her son. So they knew each other with hockey. But yeah, she was on the first time that we spoke. That one was Zoom. And then we ended up having her at vendor shows and whatnot. And so she's become one of those two that's always involved in all this stuff. And we've collaborated quite a few times. And then we're still trying to figure out a time to get, oh my God, no, I can't think of his name. The country singer, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name, but to come, Sean, right? Sean? Yeah. To come down and sing. He was on the last time. So yeah, I do think that it is neat. And I love hearing, about businesses that I probably never hear about. And quite honestly, David, I had no idea that you were part of that business. So that's really cool too. So yeah, I do think that it really helps to kind of get the word out. And I've had people just from this reach out to me about things. And it was huge too, I gotta say, from information during the shutdown. And I think just letting everyone know certain information and certain things to look into. This was also really awesome for that too. So.
Awesome. Any questions for Jenny? Or comments or suggestions?
I tend to ramble, so
you're so impressive, Jenny.
Oh God.
To me, you're like the quintessential entrepreneur. It's like, this isn't working, fine, we'll do something else. Well, that isn't working, fine, we'll do something else. Good for you. Gary, go ahead.
Again, I enjoyed your last presentation, and it's neat to hear your update. You talked about the talent. You had these 2 people you had connections in that you've plugged into spots. So kudos to that. What about frontline talent? A lot of your cohorts in the restaurant business are having trouble finding just frontline talent. How have you maneuvered that? Have you been okay in that area?
Yeah. So we really have lucked out. Down on Belgrade, we all, talk to each other, the business owners and stuff. And I don't know, for starters, we needed more staff in the summer because of the extra seating that we had. So our issue kind of October is we almost had too much staff because now we go into this very small bar. We did add on that we're open Tuesdays through Sundays now. Mondays have never really been the greatest for us. So I think we're just going to not do those. But so that added 2 more days that we didn't have. So that was, 2-3 shifts a day. And then kind of the nice thing though is that some of, my staff at the circle, hey, you want some extra hours? I'll put you in the Pelican and you can run the till, my guy that does the cleaning stuff in the morning, he's going to help with some stocking of things twice a week down at the Beast. So also kind of being able to use those staff in other ways if they're wanting extra hours. But luckily that besides my now manager, everyone has other jobs. So there's not that like burden of you are solely responsible for their well-being. Because that when we got shut down and I had staff like, I mean, that hurt, you know?
Yeah.
So, so we've never needed seasonal help, but we're kind of, that's kind of being created in the summer now. So, yeah, but as far as staff goes, I've been very lucky.
Good.
There's been like a couple times where we've, been really strapped, but yeah, so.
Mike, go ahead.
The other thing, just to add, I think as you're building out here, I think you are, as I think Yvonne alluded to, a great example of pivoting. So once you get all this other staff in place, you might have a consulting opportunity, being the pivoting pro of helping others, maneuver and get through the twists and turns the pandemic have presented your industry. So look to hear more as you keep pivoting, keep at it.
I thank you on that. And I find it, I don't know, I still find being labeled as an entrepreneur, even a business owner, I'm just a bartender. I don't know, like, and my husband, he's like, could you ever just like accept a no, or like that something's not going to work? And I'm like, no, like we'll find a way. And if this beast doesn't work, we've got a 5-year contract. I'll figure something out. I don't know. Like, it's fine.
Sorry, you are an entrepreneur right there. Right there.
Oh.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Jenny, you can also use the word the queen of resilience, because you've gone through a lot over the past year and a half. But just kind of in talking with restaurants and pubs, I know that supply lines have been a difficult situation. Some have cut their menus in half. Some have basically added new items. I mean, the menus have a tendency to be changing much more frequently now than they have before the pandemic. Just wanted to get your take as far as, I know in the bar operation, you've had to pivot quite differently, but is there supply chain issues you're facing as part of the pub? And also, are you noticing that in the restaurant as you build out for that?
Oh, yeah. You could sit there and get really angry about it, or you can and I think customers have just learned now. I mean, at first it did suck. Like if you couldn't get something, I had customers that got really mad. Well, then why does so-and-so have it? Well, because they probably got 8 cases of it and we're sitting on it. It's just, so yeah, like we're doing these advent calendars and, this is something that we did during COVID, and we ended up doing 454 last year. We're at like 200 and something so far this year. So also kind of a blessing in disguise that I'm not working at the store right now, because I have to do all these things right now. But we're waiting on like 2 different small little airplane bottles, because the other ones that we ordered weren't in stock, even though when my rep put it in, it said that they were. And so we're like, okay, well, we're waiting on those. As far as, I'm opening a Cisco store, and there's certain things that were like the best sellers, that these chicken tenders, it literally keeps saying they'll be available next week. They'll be available next week. And I'm like, but it is, it just is what it is. And then it's like, okay, well then folk, like we have this is really good too, so yeah, and I think knowing that it's across the board, I think for a little bit there, like it was feeling like, oh my God, why can't I get this stuff? Or do I need to switch reps or whatever? And it's like, no, it's just in general. And the reps are just as frustrated too. They hate being like, you put in an order and they're like, yeah, we're out of half of that now. So yeah, it's been difficult, and prices are going up on things. And so I think that's something that I don't know if collectively everyone's just gonna, or wait for one to do it and then the rest does it, but prices are gonna have to increase. And that's always hard. That's not easy. So yeah, it is, it brings up other challenges, but you just hope that your customers are understanding or explain to them that like it's really truly out of your control. So yeah.
I have every confidence that any challenge that comes up, you're going to be able to deal with it. So any other quick questions or comments for Jenny? And we're going to move into our last phase of the meeting. No, okay, I see some things going up on the Jamboard. Thanks so much. If you haven't had a chance to add something to the Jamboard, do that because we'll swing to that in just a minute. But in the meantime, we have a trivia contest. And I'm gonna ask questions. You will, here we go. I just realized I got muted there. So bring
Oh,
up
I meant
chat.
to.
Bring up chat so that you have it handy, right? So that you can see it right off to the side, because whoever types in the answer that's the most correct first will win the prize for each one of these questions. So our first question, our prize is going to be a 1 Million Cups t-shirt, similar to what I'm wearing today, and the Generational Leap book, which it comes from that. Remember, Gary mentioned the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. This comes from one of our sponsors, Pinnacle Business Solutions. And it's just a great book about like, when do you take that leap to start a new business? So it's great. So first question, since November of 2017, when we had our very first 1 Million Cups meeting, how many presentations have been made by startups? Not meetings, presentations. What's your guess about how many we've had? We put that into chat. Whoever gets the closest to the correct answer first will win our 2 prizes. I see a couple. Okay. Oh my. Got a couple that are close. Any more guesses? All right, our winner is Leah. It's actually 136 presentations that we've had since November of 2017. That's 136 times that people have gotten up bravely and said, here's what my business is all about. And this is what I'm struggling with. Would you guys help me? That's pretty awesome. Okay, another question. So Leah, I'll let you know how to get everybody who wins prizes. I'll let you know how to get them later. I'm gonna write your name here so I remember who won each one. Since November of 2017, what percentage of the presentations have been by students, high school or college students? The prize for this is going to be Dunkin' Donuts, large coffee and a dozen donuts. So you really want to get this one. So, what percentage do you think has been students? Oh, some good guesses here. Oh, some really good guesses. The very closest one was only 1% off. Mike Hermel, you got it right at 20%. It's actually 21%. So you're going to get Dunkin' Donuts, large coffee, and a dozen donuts, and I'll send you info on that. They're a wonderful sponsor for us. They've been giving us, ever since we went into the pandemic, they've been giving us a dozen donuts a week to give away. Isn't that great? They're so awesome. And they just opened up a new store downtown. So I want to tell everybody about that. Okay, another question. We have presentations by people local to Mankato, and we get many from around the region. Like Brad talked about Albert Lee, Mark was on earlier, or Mark is still here, from Blue Earth. We've had Waseca, we've had New Ulm, we've had St. Peter, we've had wonderful presentations from businesses in all these different communities. What percentage of those 136 presentations have been Mankato only in the past 4 years? What percentage do you think have been just Mankato businesses in our last 4 years? I was kind of surprised at this one myself. I went through and counted and added this stuff. Oh, some good guesses. The winner on this one is Gary Schott. 56% of the presentations that we've had in the last 4 years have been from the Mankato area. But that means we've had a lot of presentations from all around the region, which I think is really cool. It's part of one of the things that we worked on just before the pandemic and after the pandemic was this idea of on the road, right? And there were a whole region, and we can float those boats higher for everybody. So Gary, you're going to win a Entrepreneurial Leap book if you don't have one, and a 1 Million Cups mug if you don't have one yet. I'll make sure you get them both. Okay, a survey was done of presenters in 2021. Ryan Vesey from Greater Mankato Growth was kind enough to send out a survey to a bunch of presenters who've been with us. 22 people responded with their input on the experience of presenting for 1 Million Cups. What percentage of the people surveyed said they would like to present again? This will be you'll get a 1 Million Cups t-shirt and one of these cool little tumblers. What percentage said that they would like to present again? You guys are pretty good at this. Well, Mike, you hit it right on the head at 80%. 80% of the people, 80% of those 22 people said, yeah, they'd be happy to do it again and would love to do it. That same survey asked the presenters what their favorite part of the meeting was. What do you think was their favorite part of the meeting? We kind of have the what's 1 Million Cups about, then the presentations, then the feedback session, then we had the community news. Talking to people afterwards is pretty common. Yep. I got two people that gave the same answer, and you're both right, so you both get a prize, Jenny and Brad. It was definitely the feedback. It was for each of the presenters, it was hearing the feedback and the questions from everybody and the comments that people had was their favorite part. Okay, last question. At each meeting, we have a variety of folks who attend. Overall average attendance has been about 20 per meeting in 2021. What is the average number of entrepreneurs at each meeting? Out of the 20 or so that are at each meeting, what's the average number that you think are entrepreneurs? This one I was just asking for a plain number, not a percentage. Out of the 20, how many do you think? Let's see. Oh, hit me close. Jessica, you're our winner on this one. It's actually 8. 8 out of the 20 each time are entrepreneurs. So pretty close to Jessica, you're going to win a 1 Million Cups tumbler and a bag of beans, coffee from our sponsor, Pioneer Bank. Oh, and I forgot to mention to Jenny and Brad, you're the winners of a bag of Apatha Roastery coffee from our sponsor, Mogwai Collaborative. Stephanie's on with us today. Thanks so much for sponsoring, Stephanie. Sure appreciate that. So let's look at the Jamboard for just our last minute and just see whatever, and then we'll wrap up. So this is some of the comments. This was something I saw at another meeting I really liked. You just say, what do you like? What do you wish? And just kind of like dreaming, what if we could do blah, blah, blah. And I like the supportive environment of entrepreneurs. I like hearing each entrepreneur's why they got into the business, looking to start and the journey that got them there. That's my favorite part too. And then talking to people after the meeting. The I wish was, wish we had more startups from our area presenting. I wish we had more diversity in the startups presenting, definitely. I wish for more individuals to volunteer to be 1MC organizers, good. And then in the what if area, we had what if all startups were aware of 1MC? We're doing our best on that. Help get the word out. What if there needs to be a front door to a local angel network in the Mankato region? Oh, I like that. What if we can meet in person with no worries about safety? And what if potential angel investors were part of the organizing team? That might help give that front door, maybe. Yeah. Good one. So I'll look and see if anybody added to the map on the back. That made notice that there was a second thing here. Anyway, on the back here, there's a place where you can put where you're located. If you go to that second tab on the Jamboard, you can put your picture and say where you're located. Like I've stuck a little picture on Mankato, but that's okay if you don't want to take the time to do that. That's fine. Oh, last question for everybody. Would you raise your hand if you are an entrepreneur? I want to see how many we have here today. Just you can raise your hand. Oh yeah, I see you can do it person 1, 2. Let's see the pictures. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That's how we know how many entrepreneurs there are, so that I can ask this next year for our stats again. Any last comments or thoughts from anybody? My last thought is that 1MC isn't a referral network. It's not a training workshop, but you'll find great connections, you'll find clients, and you'll learn things from it. It's really primarily a safe place to come and talk about your business with people that have been there like you and that are willing to help out and support you. And I hope to see everybody at all the future meetings. I really enjoyed this today. It was great to see everyone. Any other thoughts? Go right ahead and chime in.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thanks all for coming. Have a great rest of your day. Oh, and don't forget, it's Global Entrepreneurship Week, and there's going to be a We Lead later today. Big Ideas Challenge kickoff is tomorrow, and Junior Achievement pitches are tomorrow. And then on Friday, there's a session about TikTok and one about from the Better Business Bureau on customer service and online reputation. And I'll quick throw into chat a link where you can find all those events and register for any of them. They're all free. And this is all part of a celebration of entrepreneurs that we're doing this week.